This is a conversation with Siaka Massaquoi. He is an LA-based actor of Liberian descent. He's been in SWAT, Lethal Weapon, NCIS, some other stuff. He's also a very outspoken conservative and a huge Trump supporter. So much so that he was actually at the Capitol on January 6th. And so we talk about that. We talk about his journey, going from being an Obama supporter to a Trump supporter, being at the Capitol on January 6th, what that was like, getting raided by like 20 federal agents afterwards, although not, he's not charged with anything. And yeah, just a really cool conversation. So here's Siaka Massaquoi. Siaka, okay, this is gonna be the first time I've been on the other side of this question. How do you pronounce your last name?
Massaquoi.
Oh, see, I was gonna say Massaquoi, so see,
That's close.
Okay, that's close. And Siaka, obviously, that's
Yeah.
Okay, and then what's the? Because I was trying to find it online. I try to like research people, but what's your like heritage background?
Oh, it's not online. I talk about it all the time. It's a Liberian, West African.
Okay, I knew you were West African because we have that face.
Yeah. We got that nose. That's what happens.
Oh yeah, I mean
that African.
It is crazy. I mean, growing up, getting the whole African booty scratcher thing, and now it's like cool to be African. It's been very wild. Like,
I haven't heard that phrase. Oh my god. Well, I can't remember the last time I've heard that phrase. I'm sorry. It is not like funny in general. It's just a funny, like, wait, that they used to say that. I remember that now. You African booty scratcher. You're like, hey,
I mean, they said that to you, right? I'm sure they said. You're a little older. Yeah. Well, I made a TV like kind of teaser trailer pilot called African Booty Scratcher. It's actually what ended up getting in The Simpsons. It was like not the pilot, not the teaser, but like the pilot I wrote. But it's I feel like people like you'll meet people and like, oh, just like let it go, because like I feel like Africans are always kind of talking about, oh, like kind of that Mike Jones, like back then you didn't want me, now I'm hot, you all on me, like now we're cool, Burna Boy. Like I'll meet girls and they know every Burna Boy lyric, like especially in Houston, but they know every single. Or the worst, like I don't know if you're single or dating, but like you'll meet girls and like they'll be like, oh, I love jollof rice, and it's like, who told you about jollof rice?
Hey, jollof rice is getting hot now, man. When I saw it on Instagram of how to make, and they had actually it's two things. When I saw it on Instagram, I think it was being made by a Latino person, and I'm just like, which is fine. Everybody can make whatever, but it just was like, now this is commercial. And then I saw it at I think it was at Ralph's, and I saw a bag that said like jollof rice, and I was like,
I think it was Trader Joe's. There's
Trader Joe's. I think.
Yeah. Trader Joe's has their jollof rice. I haven't tried it, but I'm sorry, I just don't believe it's going to be any good.
I mean, not if you've had real jollof rice, don't do that to yourself.
Yeah, well, I'll meet like black women, and they'll be like, oh, I love egusi. I like egg. I'm like, who? Wait, what?
Fufu. Yeah, well, hey, there's a lot more too. You gotta think too. Like for example, Liberia was in a 20-year civil war, and a lot of our refugees came over here. They've been hanging out and mingling. Like I had a cousin that went to University of Georgia. For sure. He went another one that went to Michigan. So they got to get on. And as Africans, we got that good look, that different look.
The thing is, I just want to be the first. Like, I want to be your first African. I don't want like. I want you to just pretend, like, just be like, oh, egusi. What's egusi? Or like, what's this tomato rice?
Well, you know what it is. I'll say it's like this. You ever meet a girl, and are you into sports at all or video games?
Yeah, not into video. I haven't really played video games since like PlayStation 2, like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. But
let's say even back then, right? What would the girls say? Oh, yeah, no, I like games. I like video games. Like, I like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. And then you actually hang out with them. They don't know anything about it. It was just so they can get close to you. I think that's what's happening out now when the girls are dropping jollof rice and fufu and all that. They're like...
First of all, I was not cool back then. I mean, not that I'm cool now, but girls were definitely not lying to, like, hang out with me. But I know, I'm telling you, like, at least in Houston and even probably LA, too, like, they're not lying. Like, they've had, like, I think, at a certain age, like you've been dating for a while. Houston has a lot of Nigerians. LA has not. I mean, the big Nigerian capitals.
A whole bunch.
Yeah, the big Nigerian capitals are Houston, Atlanta, and then the DMV. But like LA has a smattering. I mean, they don't have a whole bunch. I remember when I moved to LA, I couldn't find good jollof to save my life. Like I could find other African food, but no, the jollof was just, I'm sorry, it was trash. Well, shout out this one place called Aduke. I don't know if they're still around, but Aduke Kitchen. They have an Inglewood location that actually does have good jollof.
Oh, let's see.
Yeah, last I checked. But yeah, no, I think like they really like they know, like they'll be singing like, oh, I need Igbo and Shayo, like, that Burna Boy song. They know, Idon Kas, last, everybody go chop. They don't know the words. They don't know what it means. But I'm telling you, they know, like they really know. They're not faking it. So like, and I think the other thing is that like I feel like Africans, Nigerians have a reputation of being like kind of toxic. So like when I know they've been with a Nigerian, it kind of just makes me like, oh, like, like I know,
Wait, what's the why? I haven't heard that. What's when you've heard they're toxic? If anything, I heard we're a little more refreshing than the normal. I would say Black Americans here. That's what I usually get. Like, it's a little different.
I think it's like, but I don't know. I think it's like, I don't know. It's tough. I think that there's like just an idea of like Yorubas or Igbos. Those are like the two biggest tribes in as far as Nigerians. And I think it's just, it's just selection bias. Like if you date enough, then you'll have a bad experience.
Yeah.
But no, I have to ask you the question I was going to lead with. Very, very dramatically. So Siaka, where were you on January 6th?
Hey man, I was just practicing my First Amendment rights.
Okay, so first of all, look. So I love I'm excited to have you on because you're like you're the rarest thing. You're like a unicorn, which is there's nothing rarer than you, which is to be a conservative in Hollywood. Like being a conservative in Hollywood is unheard of. Like I think that
a Black conservative in Hollywood that's open about it.
Well, yeah, that's open. You know what? That is true. I've heard little stories of like they're actually more conservatives than you think. People just know to shut their mouths. Like it's funny. There was this I don't know if you've been following in crypto the collapse of FTX, this big crypto exchange.
Yes.
But Sam Bankman-Fried, the CEO, I guess disgraced former CEO, whatever CEO, he recently had a long interview, and like he began a lot of flack, and people were saying that the reason the news pieces on his what happened were so fluffy and not really taking him to task was because he was like the number two biggest donor to Democrats in the cycle.
The Democrat Party.
But he just had an interview where he said, we donated just as much to Republicans, but we did all that on like dark money. We did all that, using the secret sort of donations because people will go crazy if you openly donate to Republicans because all the journalists are liberal. And so I do think I have heard like there are some actors and like there are some people who like on the low.
Denzel's really? A conservative. Yeah, he's been talking about it. They just leave Denzel alone because he's Denzel.
Wait, are we breaking news here?
Washington? No, it's not breaking. No, he said that. He's been saying it. If you go look at his statements, he's like Christian, God, family, like a man at home. He's been saying this stuff forever. He's like, I know it's about people and people need the opportunity, the chance to do for themselves. Like he speaks much like Booker T. Washington. That's how Denzel kind of presents himself.
Well, I mean, he also speaks like Booker T. Washington, like just his intonation. I mean, not that I know what Booker T. Washington spoke like, but how I would imagine a Black man who lived in that time.
What is in the 30s?
I'm looking it up now. 30s. Yeah, Booker T. Washington. Let's see, 1856 to 1915. So he does speak the way I would think something like that. But yeah,
I think that's true too. And then also Isaiah Washington. I know he actually his thing is different though because he got blackballed because he called out what was going on in Grey's Anatomy, and then that to kind of put him in a place where he's like, screw it, I'm going to do me then.
Wait, what was going on in Grey's? I mean, I don't, I don't know.
Well, this was back this is early in the Grey's Anatomy, and they had that one actor, I forget his name, the younger looking guy, and he, he's a gay guy, and Isaiah Washington made a comment about, blah, 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 because he's gay. Like he just said that. And then there was a huge controversy. And then the Emmys, when they won the Emmy for best, show, as they're all up on stage, not up on stage. They say their thing and then they go back for the interviews afterwards as a group. And he jumps up. He goes, "Hey, just want to say all this stuff." He kind of like tried to like make it like it wasn't that big of a deal. And then he was fired from the show because of his intolerance. Yeah. So there's ones that are out there that are quiet, and there's a few you have to kind of like you have to be searching for. But I think with the PragerU video I did calling out Hollywood back in 2020, and everything else I've been involved in, whether I wanted to or not, it's I'm pretty vocal and it's pretty open and out there for people to see.
Yeah, I mean, does anyone like reach out to you like, hey man, like like I agree, I can't say this, but I agree. Like, does that happen a lot?
Oh yeah. Like I wouldn't so I would say it happens when it comes about names. There's been only a few that have reached out to me and been like, "Yo, keep fighting. I see what you're doing. That stuff, support you."
Oh, like
But a lot of
notable people.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
wow.
I mean, there's a I don't want to put on blast on here. There's probably
Oh,
like I
for
would say
sure.
a handful, like five people in the industry that work that have reached out. But I will get more young actors, who kind of don't know where to go because they see the craziness happening and they're in a position where and it's not even a thing of just being a conservative as much as just being not buying in.
Well, I think it's less being even being conservative, more just not being super liberal.
Yes,
or not
and
even
they
liberal.
feel like they can't even say anything.
Yeah, like super progressive. Although I do feel
Progressive.
like being black kind of gives you license in a weird way to kind of disagree with certain things because
yes,
you're like no one can call you racist. I mean,
yeah,
really.
Well, I mean, in my belief, like I do believe that black men are the ones can be the ones to right the ship if they decide to speak up because of that fact. That fact that they see what's going on, but people keep themselves quiet because of the kind of the nature of the way the industry is set up. And I'm like, well, yeah, we have that different space, and just we need to start speaking, from that place.
Well, people, it's a little bit different, but if you look at like I'm not saying I agree with any. I'm the host. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with anyone, but like if you look at Kanye, Kyrie, people have started speaking. I mean, not in a really political sense, but been speaking out about certain things. But let's just take it back to the beginning. Like how did you end up in America? You're Liberian, and also just to let people know who you are. Like you're an actor. You've been in SWAT. You've been in Lethal Weapon. When kids grow up, you're kind of biggest in
NCIS.
Oh yeah, NCIS. Yeah, how could I forget that? And then Californians moved to Texas as this kind of this kind of more independent Babylon Bee production, which the Babylon Bee is the site that Elon Musk basically bought Twitter to free. They had been banned by Twitter. Yeah, $44 billion
for satire. For satire though.
$44 billion tweet. But tell us about how you got first your journey into acting, right? Like coming from being an African. I don't know. Did you ever live in Liberia? Or were you born here?
I was born in upstate New York, Rochester, and then my mom moved back right away. So I was there for the first 3 years of my life. And then because in 83, there was a civil war that started, or a coup that took over. General Doe took over the country.
Okay, I can relate to that. Nigeria's got its. I'm sure Nigeria's a coup here, a coup there.
Yeah, that's called a Tuesday. No,
no. A coup is actually what you did on January 6th. But we'll get to
that. Yeah, man, I tell you what, with a cell phone, I've never seen. It was a lot different than the videos I saw of the coup in Liberia. I tell you that. But when they had people standing on the beach tied up to posts, and they used AKs on them. That's how they executed that coup. And I remember seeing that VHS when I was like 5. I was like, oh wow, that's real stuff. Yeah,
wow,
that's real stuff. So I was born there, or I was born upstate. Went to Liberia, then we moved back. Ended up, for spending some time in the city of Chicago itself. Lived with my dad for a few years, and then I moved back with my mom, and that's pretty much my formative years. I grew up in Evanston, Illinois, which is right north of Chicago, where Northwestern University and all that stuff is.
Like, I don't know if do you listen to hip hop at all?
No, not anymore. Not honestly, not consistently since early 2000. Because
well, who was your last artist you really listened to back then?
Well, the one I've actually really listened to of a recent artist was like 3-4 years ago. I was really into J. Cole. J. Cole is just, to me, just one of the cleanest. Not clean from a language standpoint or anything, but just as just sharp. You know what I mean? Like the way he puts it together. It almost feels like, even when he's kind of talking about, when he's kind of, and he doesn't really rap about trap stuff all that much, but that just kind of vernacular in there. When he does it, he just has it seems like everything's thought out. Right. And so I dig that J. Cole style, and that's what I got into. But back would be the Lost Boys. I listened to, of course, Eminem, Biggie, Bone Thugs.
Wow, no Pac.
Honestly, here's the funny thing. My homies love Pac.
You could kind of play Tupac low-key. You got the bald head.
I auditioned for Tupac 6 years ago.
Wait, is it the All Eyes on Me? The All Eyes on Me movie? Or was it?
Yes, and I did I worked. It was I got the audition 2 days before. I had a little beard, so I made it a goatee, got a little tank top, and went and I rehearsed the song All Eyes, because they say come in with a verse. So I did All Eyes on Me, and I did a little verse, and I was like doing my thing or whatnot. So
Wow.
yeah, that was
yeah, you got
but
the look I
don't know.
bit.
I wasn't really a big Tupac guy. I was more a Biggie guy. I was more East Coast, because I was born in New York, so I was like, nah, I'm gonna always kind of lean this way. So that's what I dug more.
Yeah, no, I asked because like I think I got really into like, I'm a big hip hop guy. I mean, I listen to all sorts of things. I listen like my music taste is super eclectic. I like Vampire Weekend, Lana Del Rey, Bob Dylan, but like I listen to a lot of like hard like rap too, mostly. But like Chicago is like the rap stuff there, like the violence.
Yeah.
And it seems like Evanston's like removed from that, I think. But like, or I don't know if it is, but there was like the murders and like you're a conservative, so you probably know like the murder numbers in Chicago like down to the back of your hand probably. But like,
it's not as much anymore. But I just know it's like I've been watching that since 2010, since Rahm Emanuel took over as mayor. He was given that position by the system set up there. And in the first 6 months, he shut down 50 schools in the South Side. By that following summer, it was the murder capital of the country. So it is clearly a cause and effect right there. He also, the West Side, I have a buddy of mine that I went to high school with. We played football and wrestled together. He's a police officer there, and he's telling me how the West Side is just an open drug market. So
and just to interject really quick, I like to fact check live because sometimes people just say crazy stuff. But I am looking Chicago Sun-Times. But the record Chicagoans most likely will remember from his tenure is that he closed 50 schools, more than had ever been closed at one time in the United States, most of them in African American neighborhoods. So Siaka is not just talking out of his, I do like to fact check,
please. And because sure. Like, look, the things that I like to, before I started coming out and being as vocal, I watched a lot of what was going on. And one of the things that I wanted to be clear about is number one, two things is to be consistent in what I say. If I'm bringing up these stuff, like you'll hear in other interviews, I say the same thing about Rahm Emanuel. I don't make it, I don't go away from it depending on who I'm talking to. And, and two, with that consistency, it's harder for people to use things against you because that's what they want. And I'd see that's what really hurts people. Like, well, I heard you said here over here, and now you say, how do you? I'm like, no, man, like, if I'm going to come out and say
they get you tripped up. They get you twisted up in your own. Yeah. And that's right. Okay. So your Evanston, so was it like, what kind of upbringing was it? Was it close to violence? Was it away from violence? Was it in the middle?
It was, I would say it was like a middle ground. Like we always kind of saw Evanston as like a mini Chicago where it was, and probably a mini Chicago that was 10 times safer. Cause we had our area, right? That was like, it do a little something, but everything has their area. But for the most part, like, growing up with liberal sensibilities, and that's why I was taught, but we were still pro-America. Like we had our 4th of July parade, the same parade in 2020, like many of these liberal cities, they shut it down in the city I grew up. I mean, our football team marched in that parade. That was pro-United States. That's how I grew up.
I mean, they shut everything down during COVID, obviously. And I know you were outspoken about that. Or even
only in the liberal cities that canceled 4th of July. So like that's what I mean. Like they were a part of that cancellation where other places still stood up and celebrated. That was seeing that happen was like, wow, man, I've come out such a different way. But I grew up in it. There's, I sat there, I went to the college, University of Iowa, and I actually even did in high school, I did an anti-violence march from the high school to our downtown. Where I was,
you were always politically active. You were always pretty politically active.
Yeah, I was in student council in high school. Yeah, I was always kind of there. I was a history guy in high school and college. That was kind of my big thing. I mean, I fell into acting in college. That was my passion. So then instead of just becoming a history teacher, I decided to do acting instead.
Any sports? Any sports in there or no?
Yeah. I went to school I got a scholarship to play football at the University of Iowa. So
I'm gonna guess cornerback.
No, running back. I was told to rock, baby.
You don't give me a corner like running back vibes. Like I feel like running back is like kind of stout or like just really maybe you lost weight. I don't know.
I definitely lost weight, but most of my weight was always on my legs. So anytime somebody look at me up top, because there's guys. I remember we went to a game to watch another team, and another team was there, and we're talking. We're like, yeah, we're from Evanston, and the guy was like, so what's up with that Massaquoi? Huh? Is he all right? I was like, yeah, I'm doing okay. And they looked at me and they're like, you're not him. I'm like, My friends are laughing. I'm like, yeah, I'll see you next week. I'm trying to get a buck 50 on you. We'll see if you recognize me then, right?
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I got.
Yeah, I was never great at football. I mean, I was never super. I mean, I was like athletic, sort of. But I was never like I don't know. I was never great at football. I also feel like you have to be a little bit crazy because like you just get hit so much. I didn't really grow up playing it like that. Like it's.
You got to be like.
I respect it. I respect it.
You definitely got to like. You definitely there's this thing of like screw it that you have to have when you're playing football. I remember it was at Iowa and there was a kickoff and I'm running down and I play a position where I get a running start right before the kicker can kick it off. So I get past more people faster. And so as I'm running down, it was against Northwestern, ironically. They come up and they made a wall. And as I'm running and I'm like the first one there and it was four of them and me and one of the guys gave each other a look in the eyes, man. It was one of the most interesting moments in my life playing football. And we looked at each other like, oh my God, we're going to do this. And I just kind of give like a shrug, like it's about to happen. And I threw my whole body into him and it ended up making a tackle, but it's like, I didn't even know I made the tackle till I watched the tape. But it's just that moment. You do have to have that little like, yeah, I'll jump off a building with a parachute. Let's see if it works. Like why not,
a little bit of a loose screw. I remember one time like it was like a drill and like it was like a receiver drill or something, and I was like running and I just got like I'm tracking the ball with my eyes and I just got laid out. Like the safety just came. I mean, it was a drill, but I was like, I don't
that
know.
Was a drill? Oof.
Yeah, I don't like getting hit. I don't like getting hit. Like it's not fun. What's it called? Okay, so you're playing. So I mean, that's a D1 school, right? If you're playing against Northwestern,
Big Ten.
So you were like really, really good. So were you like?
Yeah, I was an Illinois State Player of the Year in 1997. Everything's 2000.
Talking about secret conservatives, athletes are often. I mean, I'm not gonna act like I've had conversations or anything like there's anyone I'm thinking of in particular, but just I've heard that like athletes too sometimes are like even rappers to a certain extent. Athletes, because I mean, you're making that much money, you start kind of feeling like, hey, like taxes, and just other things too.
It's the money definitely can play a factor. Dave Chappelle has a joke where he talks about all the stuff and he goes, "But I'm a conservative. See how much money I make now," or something like that. But the way how I can at least understand it is that it's a work reward type of thing. You got to bust your butt to make that money. So, and a lot of MMA fighters, a lot of fighters are conservative as well. So what I've seen and what I think a lot of people see as being offered by the left is money for nothing to a certain extent. It's hard to kind of wrap your brain around that as an athlete when you've gone out there, you've earned your spot.
Yeah, MMA fighters, you're very right about MMA fighters. There is that sort of like, that's an interesting kind of take on it.
Because it's like, look, no one gave him anything, especially the fight game. No one gives him anything with NFL or the NBA because there's so much money involved in a lot of the sponsorship stuff. Some guys can remember when they had like BLM on the court, or they had in the NFL they have like end racism or I choose love on there. It's like that stuff's all like big business. That's not that doesn't mean anything.
Well, yeah, I mean it's like if you're doing anything truly transgress, it reminds me of like during the bubble. During the bubble season, like Adam Silver, like the league would say, like they wore names on the back of their jerseys, like equality and justice and stuff. But like, and you couldn't put like Medicare for all on the back of your jersey. Like I mean, like George Floyd didn't die because of healthcare, but like my point is just that like if you're having sanctioned, it's not like okay, here's the type of protest you can have. That's not really a protest, right? Because no one's gonna no one if no one feels threatened by it, it's not really
it's bought and paid for.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's like antithetical, like kind of like sanctioned protesting is a little bit antithetical. But I mean, ironically, the person who really ran the protest was you going to the Capitol.
That was my third time there too in like 5 months.
Well, are you gonna? So the LA Times article says you were in the Capitol, which I feel like you wouldn't be here sitting in front of me because as much as people kind of say that people went soft on those guys, I know I've had certain conversations, like I know that that was a priority for Biden, like getting the Capitol, the Jan 6 rioters charged and through the system. But yeah, because I was looking, I was like, wait, like this LA Times article said that, this LA Times article said that you were in there. So what I mean, I want to say this for later, but walk us through, like, because you got raided at like what 6 a.m. Like, so you're sleeping, and like they came in with like guns, like you were like a drug lord, right? Like it was not
15 agents. Yeah.
15?
Yeah, they came in there, guns drawn, like it was wild, bro. And me at the when I went to January 6th, and I tell this to anyone who would listen, it was just like all the other rallies I went out there to in DC, and majority of the rallies that I went out here in LA, especially the Beverly Hills rally I was going on in that summer, going leading up to the election. It was awesome. It was peaceful. It was fun. We're laughing, having a good time. It was cold as all get out, which that was the only thing I hated. So we are.
You're from Chicago though. You gotta be a little used to that.
No, I'm from Chicago, but I choose to live in LA. Everyone always says that, and I go, "There's the reason why I'm in LA for the last 18 years. I'm from LA now, like I'm over Chicago." But yeah, no, we ended up like, the speech. Trump ends the speech, and then he's like, "All right, now walk over there." Peacefully and let your voices be heard, and we start walking.
I feel like this is going to end up on I feel like this is going to end up on like one of those like Jan 6 committees. Like they're gonna well, they don't have to subpoena it, but
yeah, they can just find it on their own.
Yeah, they can find it on.
Here's the other thing you mentioned it earlier about being a unicorn. A lot of I've talked to former FBI, my lawyer, a few other people. Their belief is the biggest reason why I hadn't been arrested or charged is because I'm Black. Because think about it, I'm not the narrative that Christopher Wray's talking about, right? African, educated brother who could speak well in the industry, and that's who they go after, and then pedestal is like, look at the white supremacist. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but it's funny though. Like, there was a period, I don't know if it still stands, but there was a period where the guy who the person with the longest sentence in Jan 6 was a Black dude. I don't know if it might have been like only briefly. I think he might have been exceeded. But like I remember, like the longest sentence handed down for Jan 6, briefly at least, was a Black dude at one point.
But it's like this. I'm all the difference is I'm pseudo public, because I know there's some people there's people that they haven't heard of. Like a lot of people don't know a pregnant lady who was just standing on the grass had been under house arrest for the last year and a half because she was there, and they did that to her. They didn't talk about how this grandfather, this Vietnam vet, pastor for 50 years, was basically walked in by security to and from the bathroom, and they got him and his son with flashbangs and stuff.
Well, so I don't talk about those things. So I haven't followed it super closely because I think that even like Americans seem to care more, and maybe I'm guilty of this too, but I care more about. I was gonna say I care more about inflation and stuff, and prices. But to be honest, I don't follow politics like that. I just don't think like it sounds bad, but I just don't like. I feel like there's just many things I could be doing that are more impactful than like obsessively kind of like like politics is kind of fandom. It's kind of like red team, blue team. I think that like people like kind of not always, but people. I feel like people often aren't really principled. Like I feel like people just kind of like root for. I remember like during the kids in cages stuff, like. A lot of people would be like, oh, like look at these horrible pictures of kids in cages, and they'd be like, oh, that's from 2015, and they would just like quietly delete it. So I'm like, oh, you don't really care. Like, it's just like, it's like you don't really, I just felt like, okay, this is just like my team, your team.
Yeah,
it's not. I mean, it is, like,
and that's there's a lot of truth in there.
Yeah, like it does matter, but like I don't follow it super closely. Like I'm aware of everything. There's a lot of truth in
there. There's a lot of truth in there, but I think kind of how it's been set up, and whether people want to agree with it or not, both you and I work in the industry. We even mention it. Majority of the industry is liberal. They speak open about it. So what has been showing people how to view politics has been media that is run by certain people, by liberal media. So this whole idea of not following politics that closely has been conditioned to us. But how do we not follow the thing that informs whether we can drive, whether we can own a house, whether we pay more taxes out of think about that. Like you having this system that you're set up here, me having I have a own business. I started business and another business with friends. Doing that here in California is that much harder than doing it in Texas. Why? Because of the people we vote for. So I have to pay more just to try to create my own space where I don't have to be a worker bee. It's harder here in California than it is in other states that isn't run by the left. It's just like New York and Chicago. We have to pay attention to it because it literally affects how we move day to day. I ran for local office in a bill like SB 1419, where it doesn't allow parents to see their kids' medical records without their children signing off and then the health provider signing off. If we're not paying attention, exactly. If we're not paying attention to politics, the state here in California just passed a law to say parents don't have the right up to their kids' medical records. Like, that's the thing. That's real.
Yeah,
That's not, I didn't make that up. That's not a,
so,
you
so,
know.
yeah. So I think
So like that's, I'll tell you this real quick. I'd say this, me and my lady, if that's not turned, my lady and I are not having children in California. There's no way I will take someone out. They try to tell me about my kid's medical records, or that I need my kid to sign off. And then it has to be okayed by the health provider.
But but that bill hasn't passed, right? I'm sure.
No, it passed. It's passed and signed. Yeah. Wow. Gavin Newsom signed it and it's passed.
Well, yeah, I mean, so if I said only follow, I think I just mean more like the 24/7, like the 24/7 outrage cycle, right? Of like,
yeah, no, don't do that.
Like I felt like I'm aware of like, Roe v. Wade getting overturned, and like, like I'm aware of broadly like what's going on, but like as far as I remember like the 2016 to 2020, every Trump's about to get arrested and indicted, and we finally got him, and this is we're
some more show.
Yeah, it just feels like like to stay on the treadmill of like the daily sort of like who what's AOC saying today, or what's Trump what's happening, like like the sort of production of it, like that. I think that's what I don't follow, right? Like
that's the trap. Then that's the trap. The fact that they put the production in to turn so many people like yourself, so many good people that I know, they turn them off in this way because of that. And that to me is done on purpose, because there's things I go, you're a man, I'm a man. There's things that we want in life. And if we're not looking at how is our government moving for the things I want in life, I want a home. I want to be able to have income to take care of my wife and my kids. Let me look and see, is this government here in California making that easier or harder? That's really it. People don't have to take a side outside of it. Like me, I'm passionate because I've looked into different things and gone further, and I believe certain things about why they're doing it. But if we can start at the simplest piece, which is like, are they working for the benefit of how I want my life to move? Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. If you start looking like that, then you can start to siphon through when they're like, Trump's this, you're like, all right, yeah. But what's going on with like business filings and tax? Like, is it better or worse if I want to have a small business? Because the other thing is meant to have a bad taste in our mouth of it.
Right. Oh, what was that? I mean, what was that thing that? Net neutrality, right? It's stuff like that where it's like, like net neutrality. Like, if we pass net neutrality, the internet's going to come to you, 1 cent at a time, and we'll have to pay. Well, people do pay $8 for Twitter, but it's for the blue check or for the Twitter blue. But like, if like, it's like the world is always ending, right?
Always.
Like in the news, right? It's always like there's always something you have to be outraged about, like and like that goes to a degree, like both sides, right? Like it's like if you watch one, it's like. It's like if you watched Fox News all day, you might think that like little kids just cutting their dicks off all over America, which like there is there is like there obviously think that their transness has increased. Or if you watch like CNN, you might think that that like
cops
January 6th,
black people everywhere,
or even that January 6th was like
Pearl Harbor,
like it was like 9/11, right? And I think it's just like the and I mean, cops do kill black people, but like, cops kill, that even that situation.
First of all, cops kill
very
people.
Complicated. Yeah.
They kill people more, and they kill more white people. And then we want to break it down. This is something that I'm always like, why don't we ever do it? Like Derek Chauvin was reported 15 times for aggravated assault against him, not fired once. Why? Because the unions are too strong. Why are the unions too strong? Who pushes and supports the union strength? That makes it harder for people to be able to fire bad police and bad teachers because the unions are too strong. Who keeps supporting unions?
Well, it is interesting. I do think that, I do think also like it's tough because I think that people, rally around like black people getting killed by police, but I think when you frame something as just a black issue, like what was the guy? I think Daniel Shaver, who like if you like basically, I think there's something that's funny that I think progressives do is that like anything that happens, they'll explain how it disproportionately hurts black people. But like what I think, I think the result of that is that it makes white people be like, okay, well, I don't have to care about this, right? Like if you're like,
it's
this
harder,
thing,
and like what I've seen is too. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I think, that's just, I think that like actually, if you think that, and this is what Obama was really good at, it's like if you think that America is racist, you wouldn't go around saying. If you want to convince people to fix things, you wouldn't say, hey, these things hurt black people more, because you would say, hey, like, this is a racist country, and that's going to make them care about it less. So it means so it's either like you don't really believe America's that racist, because otherwise, like, why would you kind of continue to, like, every time, like, it could be freaking, meteors headed to Earth. Well, women and minorities are going to be impacted the most, and it's like, well, that's not going to really rally people.
That's not going to exactly.
And that's people,
another.
So
you got to bring it
like,
together.
Yeah, like, I mean, there are a bunch of studies that have been shown about, like, the incidence of, like, cops killing people. But I think just even regardless of that, like, I think you want people to feel it's a universal problem. You want people to feel that, that it's their problem too, because if it's like, oh, this is just a poor black problem, people don't care about poor people in general, and poor black people, on top of that. So yeah, I do think that, like, because I think people are gonna hear that and be like, oh, like, cops kill white people more, and people be like, oh, you're like one of those self-hating, black people. But I do think that, like,
self-hate. They can say it. First of all, they can say it all they want, and I'll tell you straight up, the most of the ish I've ever heard from people happen to come from black folks. They want to talk about, I hate myself and this, that, and the other. Okay, that's fine. They can do that all they want. I know the person I answer to is Jesus Christ. I don't deal with their stuff anymore. And that self-hating thing for them not wanting to hear, I usually say, why do you go to such hard ad hominems and not try to debate the point? That's all the stuff that ever happens. There's never a debate on the point.
I would think that you would get more stuff from, like, white liberals than other black people. I do think, like, black people are like, there's a secret. I feel like black people are, like, secretly a little bit conservative, especially black men. Like, there are a lot of things, like, I mean, we all listen to Boosie. We don't listen to Boosie, but we've all seen the Boosie clips, like the way he talks about, gay people, or even like you ask a black woman about, like, dating a bisexual man, and she'll turn into Boosie herself. Be like, oh, like. So I do think that, like, there is like a string, a strain of conservatism.
Black folks were conservatives until the 64 or 65 Civil Rights Act. They were conservative up until that point. It's also what had the highest marriage rate in the country, but. What's going on? When they started to partner with the new radical left, everything went to shit. And now we're seeing the results of that. Black folks were conservative, and it was only when they partnered up, and the only difference between the 65 Civil Rights Act and the 1887 and the 1954 or 57 was the fact that they added in welfare. That was the only reason. That was the only way they got the Democrats to vote yes on the Civil Rights Act, was because they added in welfare.
Well, it's funny. You do see the conservatism of black people show up in a lot. Like, for example, like, Joe Budden was floundering, right? Joe Budden, Jesus, I'm freaking over here listening to too much hip hop, too many podcasts and too much hip hop. Joe Biden was floundering until he got to the South, right? And in the South, he cleaned up because black people are. I mean, I think people will be like, oh, well, it's because he was, he's the guy who stood next to Obama for 8 years. But I think black people are just the stuff that, like, Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and AOC are kind of pushing. Black people just are not really for super, like, super progressive things. And even Latinos, like, you've seen all the Latinos, especially in Miami, kind of flocking towards it. It's kind of funny because I feel like the left will be like, oh, like BIPOC, whatever. But in the moment people start voting conservative, it's like, well, Miami Cubans are basically white people, and like, like these, like when it's convenient, we're all black and people of color. When people start kind of voting different, it's like, well, Asians in
they're not really they're not minorities.
Yeah, they're rich.
Did you see?
Right?
There was an article. And you can fact check this, because it happened literally right after the 2020 election. Article came out in The Root. I forget the author's name, but it said straight black men are the new white supremacists for black people.
Oh, I mean, yeah, there's a lot.
So they start doing that, and it's like, that's from ourselves, bro. That's before, like, any other group start doing. They're already saying, no, straight black. I mean, then after what's name lost in Georgia, they're like, oh, demons are the reason why black men didn't vote. And you're like, damn,
yeah,
not reason.
I wish I could remember what article, what magazine or platform it was, and like what the issue was. But I remember it was some issue, and they were like, "Oh, maybe we should stop listening to black kind of celebrities or black people," because, like, because I think when black people start speaking out, and you see, I mean, not that I endorse either of whatever, but like Kanye and Kyrie, it's like, listen to black people. It's like, wait, no, not those ones, right? It's like,
of course,
I feel like listen to black people, like listen to people of color, always ends up being like a Trojan horse for like listen to white liberals, right? It ends up being like, listen to the white people, listen to the black people whose views we agree with, only, right?
Yes.
Because I think, because like we've, like, Ice Cube just came out saying he turned down 9 million, and I was gonna say that I was vaccinated, but I'm like, wait, like, why do I feel the need to like justify, like, oh, like, hey, I'm one of the good ones. But But like, Ice Cube.
I'm one of the good.
Well, I just don't want it's weird. I don't want to like take a position. I want to be like a neutral. But like, so whether or not I was, but like, Ice Cube said he turned down $9 million because he's like, I'm not gonna get the jab, and I think that like, for like a lot more Black people have views that you like. It was like I hoop a lot. I've been hooping like a lot lately, like playing basketball.
Oh, good for you. Fun. My knees can't do it no more.
It's funny you say that because I've been trying to like I feel that like my knees are starting to get there, but I remember that around the time of the I always think like basketball is like a Black male fellowship, like it's really like it's like our therapy, it's like our church, like we you get, especially if you have a group of guys you play with every week, it's almost like a friend group, right? And like as there's these articles that come out recently about how Americans are spending more time alone than ever, and like especially American men are like not really lack friendship.
High suicide rate right now.
Yeah, too. All that stuff. So like we were hanging out after the basketball, after hooping, and so I used to play I would play on Saturday mornings. It was kind of like a more like late 20s, early 30s crowd, and then Sunday mornings like this more like 40s crowd, 40s even up to 50, and like afterwards they were talking about, it was around the time of the Kanye and Kyrie stuff was going full tilt, and they were like, see, they do control everything. Like it really like watching Kanye lose all all these deals and watching Kyrie like. Oh, you have to do all this and that. Like the stuff they were saying,
you can't say nothing.
Well, the stuff they were saying, I was like, if the white people I went to college with were around here, they would be canceling each of these people. They'll be but I'm like, those views are actually relatively common, right? My barber, I had a barber who said, white people are born with tails. Like a lot of.
He was like, I seen the books. I remember. I do remember that from back in the day, actually. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like even like the Black Hebrew Israelite stuff. Like a lot of it's not as uncommon as you think. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not. But it's like it's not as uncommon as you think.
And here's one side, and this is because I love that we kind of brought this up because I was talking to my friend about this when Kanye left Tim Pool's interview. And, I actually watched the video Anomaly on it where he breaks down the whole video and why he was like, this is look at what was going down. And the initial clip of Kanye just getting up and leaving, I was like, I even wrote this, tweeted, I was like, man, that's, it's messed up. He shouldn't have left. He should explain his point.
Wait, he left Tim Pool, or where did he leave?
Yeah, he got up and he was at the interview and he just got up and walked away like in the middle of the interview. But the biggest thing was seen was that, we can say like to me, it reminds me of that Dave Chappelle joke he said on SNL. Because when it's a group of Black people, it's a gang. A group of Italians, it's a mob. When it's a group of Jews, it's just a coincidence. You never talk about it. Kanye's point and what he was trying to talk to Tim about and how Tim was trying to dodge it was, why can we say, and he said, and Kanye and Tim said this to Kanye when Kanye was like, hey, what about running for president? He goes, oh, you'd be great for the Black vote. And it's like, well, okay, so we can group in certain times, but in this thing, keep your mouth shut. It doesn't exist. That's the issue. It's not the issue of, is it really all Jewish people or is it nobody or is it good or bad? The issue is once you can't speak on things, just like COVID, just like when we talk about like what has been going on a lot of times with the Democratic Party, you can't speak on that. That's not happening. Just like the drag queen shows that aren't happening that people talk about, like when you cannot speak about it openly in a society, that is a problem. Now, like you said, you're watching the same banks that shut people down, the same banks that shut down General Flynn because the FBI told him to shut down Kanye's banks. And I'm like, wait a second. So there isn't something there to be seen? Now, even if I didn't believe that, like you said, you brought it up in a way where if somebody didn't believe it, that's a natural place you'll go, because it's like, wait a second, he's losing everything?
Yeah, it was very interesting to listen to the conversation. I told a friend of mine who's like a really, really big politics like Twitch streamer, like super left-wing Twitch streamer, but I was like, wow, this is what's happening like on the ground. And it was interesting because it just made them, I mean, I'm not gonna repeat the stuff they were saying because I don't want my channel to get taken down or whatever, but like, I need distribution. But like they were saying, like that a certain group that they're like, oh, they control this, they control that, they control this. I think the way I look at it, I think it's about context, right? So I think that like when you say, oh, this group controls everything, or like this group has a lot of power, right? And I'm trying to figure out the way to say this, right? I think that like it's like if you said like, oh, Black people commit a lot of crime. That's true, but there's context that like Black people were disenfranchised for 400 years. They were brought over as chattel slavery. There were all that
stuff happened. Most of that stuff happened because of 65, brother. Most of that stuff. That the context behind that, when you really break it down, like when you bring, and we're seeing now with people trying to get work, when you remove work from finances, it's all going to fall apart. If we want to see what it looks like for the state to run a community, look at the Black community. The Black community has been run by the state basically for 60 years. That's what it looks like.
but either way, I feel like it's about like context and nuance, right? So it's like, okay, like this group might have a lot of positions in like certain industries, but it's like, okay, that's because maybe they were excluded from certain industries, or like there isn't really like some sort of conspiracy or some like secret cabal. It's more just like, you know, over time, like certain industries, you know, I think like my understanding at least is that like the reason a lot of people flock towards banking is because they were excluded from other industries, or even entertainment, they were excluded from other industries. But I mean, either way, I do think that like,
well, you have the banking, you control everything. If you do. I'm just saying that's just a fact of banking. Okay, I'll give you this then. If you see a movie, a Tyler Perry movie that has starring Idris Elba, you got let's say Will Smith, all the big names. What do most people call that movie?
A Black movie.
Okay, so we don't. There's no context to that though, huh?
Well, yeah.
But is it only? You see, that's the argument. The argument isn't trying to put the point out. The argument is, why is this one thing the only thing that people go, you can't even bring up? You can't even have a conversation to have that nuance.
So to steelman it, to argue sort of the counter, it's like,
yeah,
the idea is that the Holocaust was so singularly terrible that like any sort of seeming grouping of that group feels. I think the argument that people would make is that like it feels like you'll go back there. Now I guess the other thing though, and I think that not Van Lathan, Amin El Hassan, who's like a sports podcaster blogger, he made the point that, well, because someone made that argument, well, you know, this group's been through so much. He's like, well, Black people been through a lot too, and you don't see people saying you can't talk about Black people. So anyway, like that's a whole. And by the time this comes out, I believe
that like the crime stuff, right? I've heard this when you see it, like 80%. They say you're 80% more likely to be shot when you're around Black people, as a Black man, than if you're around a bunch of white people or anything. You're 80% more likely. We look at the murder rate in Chicago. See, there you go. Look at that. So, and I'm sorry, but
it was
if we can't talk about that is happening in our community, because I've said that around liberals, and they go, "Oh, that's a conservative talking point." People die because we can't talk about it. People lose their lives on a consistent basis because the mayor of Chicago and both of them that passed go, "There's nothing here, crime's down." And if you bring it up, it's racist. People die because we can't talk about things. They get mistreated because we can't talk about things. If we're a free society, it's not a matter of if he goes, well, the Jews run everything. Okay, what Jews? Who are you talking about? Not anti-Semitic, you're done, shut them off. Because then who's shutting them off? Off of what is he being shut off of? Entertainment.
Well, yeah, I do think what you're describing is exactly what happened with the dudes I play basketball with, which they were like, this just made them, like, I realized, like, and I think someone else made a good point about this. I can't remember who it was. It was Jon Stewart, actually. He made a point about this. Basically,
yes.
It's very rare for him these days to make a good point.
I know.
I should edit that out, but it's not like he's going to hire me or something. Like
he sees what's going on. That point was really clear too.
It's like point. I real like it made me, because I was coming pretty fresh off that hooping. I'm like, they were just like, yo, like, look at these dudes, these two dudes losing everything left and right.
Yep.
Like, how can you simultaneously, you know? And I think so. It's you know, it's actually a delicate thing. But so anyway, so I feel like we stopped at like football. So football,
the January 6th. Like that's where we're getting into.
Oh well, we were. Well, I feel like we skipped over football to acting. Let's go to football to acting real quick. So what was that path?
Well, so that was it was like so I redshirted. But it was my third year, third and a half, I would say, by 3.5 years. And I was like, all right, I got to start taking this thing seriously. What the heck am I going to do?
Wait, what was your 40 time? Because you must have been real fast.
The 40, my best 40 was 4:49.
Oh, so you were a speed demon.
Oh man, when I could get out there, I never got caught. When I get outside, and I was one of those backs that, like, I always felt like my game was closer to like a Roger Craig or a Ricky Waters, where like I can catch out of the backfield, I can make some moves, like I could, I'm not sitting there Barry Sanders making 17 moves on a guy, but I'm also not like turning the corner and Bo Jackson just sprinting past everybody because I'm running a 4-4, but.
You must play other sports. You must play basketball, baseball too.
Well, I played in high school, football, wrestling, track, And then I've been doing martial arts until I blew my knee out in 2017 or 2018. Sorry. I did martial arts basically since I was 17. I'd like to do sports. So I've done mountain or, rock climbing, all that good stuff. I got to
Can you
keep in
dunk
shape.
or could you dunk? I mean, you could probably get dunk when
Yeah.
you were younger. Can you still, well, you're
Yeah.
a little older now. Can you still dunk?
I had a patella injury. Yeah. I ruptured my patella tendon. And so I had surgery, and I also had surgery on my Achilles playing flag football. So dunking, but I can still move within a nice little space real well, right in this little space, So yeah, I always feel like it's important to keep yourself in shape, and that competition, like you're talking about, like that, I always found that like doing that with guys, like it is that therapy. I liken it to when girls get together and go to brunch for when they do the bottomless mimosas, like they get to talk and yeah, girl, and all this stuff, and we're like, we get there and we're like, yeah, motherfucker, that was a foul, whatever. Hey, good game. Come on, you got next. Hey, he can't shoot. Everyone's like, it's like that is our way of kind of getting it out there, and it's physical and it's safe. It's not like just let's go out and find someone to beat up, because that's really kind of what it is.
Yeah, it's it's therapeutic. It's like bonding for sure. Okay,
definitely.
So yeah, tell us the journey from football, because I'm sure Iowa. Like you're like, all right, I'm going to play football, or maybe I'm going to go work in business, and then you kind of how do you end up acting?
So I started going into history, right? I wanted to be a history because I was like, oh, what am I going to do? I was like, well, I love working with kids. First job ever was babysitting, so I was like, all right, well, I love being around kids and teaching them whatever, and I love history, so let's combine that. So I was going to be a history teacher. One of my favorite classes and teachers were history teachers. And then I was like, well, all the books in history in my history class, they don't have any pictures except for up front. There's this thick, dense book. So I was like, I need something where I can just relax. And I remember thinking I enjoyed the theater arts. So I opened up theater arts, and I just literally, bro, I go, and I found this class called Black Action Theater. And I thought to myself, I'm like, oh man, this would be great. We'll just watch like Blade 1 and 2. We'll watch like Action Jackson, and we'll talk about black movies. Let's go. Shaft,
Yeah, I'll say Shaft.
So I took the class, and I ended up going into the class, and day one, it was this like 6'2" brother from Harlem who had a fedora with the feather earring here, with a vest, with a down open shirt, with just basically Harlem Renaissance, pro-black like artist. He walks in, he's like with army fatigues on and everything, right? And the fan, he's just like, he walks in, he's like, all right, what's up? Da-da-da. And his energy's just a lot. And I'm like, whoa, this is not what I thought it was going to be. But then he was like, all right, he gave us our first assignment, which was to write a scene.
That was a teacher. That was the teacher. I thought it was like, that was another student. Oh, wow.
No, that was the teacher. That's why I was like, uh-oh. And then we had a first writing assignment. It was the first time I ever wrote anything as a kind of a scene. I never had. I watched it and enjoyed them, but I never written anything. I did that. And I found myself, it was the only thing I was doing, including football, where I enjoyed the process just as much as the result. And I was like, uh-oh. I think I want to be an actor, because there's nothing else that I've ever done. And I've been successful in these other things, but a lot of times the process was like, practice. Oh, lifting weight. Oh, I got to write this thing.
I played football. So I was at this boarding school for high school. You had to play like a sport each season, or like there's a play also. You could do a play. But football practice, my goodness. Or even, track practice in general, man.
Track practice in general.
Yeah. Although I started getting a little bigger, so in track I started doing like shot put and discus. So like that practice is pretty chill. But every now and then I remember there were a couple of track practices we were just going like a super long run. Which is So in football practice in the heat, like or even in the cold too, like So I agree with you there. So you're like, all right, so you caught the bug.
Yeah, so I'm in this class. I'm falling in love with it. And I remember sitting next to a buddy of mine, and we're having a beer one night. Same guy in class, and I'm like, man, I think I want to be a theater major. And he's like, yeah, me too. We're all sad about it, because this was also back when like we believed that our parents would be like, that's not a real life job, and what are you doing,
Well, especially Africans.
Yeah, right. But my mom happened to be, love my mom to death, and she came and saw a play of mine and was like, great decision to switch. And I was like, I love you. But we went in there, and the next day in class, after me and my buddy had talked about it, the teacher, this was probably like towards the tail end of the semester. He's like, "Hey guys, thank you guys. You guys have put in like a lot of hard work, and some of you guys are going to do this, and I get it, and some of you guys aren't, and I understand that, but some of you guys need to understand this is what you're going to do for the rest of your life, Siaka, as you move forward." And I was like, "What?" And I looked around and I hit my buddy, be like, "Why'd you tell him?" And he goes, "He didn't tell me anything. I could just see it." And from that moment on, it was everything acting pretty much.
So do you move to LA right away? You move to New York?
No,
like,
no.
After college, like, are you ever?
Well, I moved
Like,
back home and
you're not. You do like because everyone has a classic. Like, I mean, people don't. I think some people don't realize like acting. There's people see the overnight success, but it's really like a 10-year thing. Often it's like you're sleeping on couches, you're waiting tables, like it's that.
You're getting kicked out of apartments. Do you remember the Old Spice guy, Isaiah Mustafa?
The black dude, right?
Yeah. He was in the It remake and everything.
Yeah.
So he was my manager at this bar called Green Door in Hollywood, and I remember when the Old Spice thing hit, we were auditioning at a spot over at Ocean Park over in Santa Monica. And he walks up, and I was coming in, and he was coming out, and I was like, "Oh, what's up, man?" And he's like, "Hey, dude, my spot just dropped. It's so awesome. People really love it. Check it out. I did it in one." He was breaking down like how he did it in one take and audition, and they loved it. And he showed me on his phone on YouTube. I was like, "Dude, congratulations, man. Hey, hopefully it does something." Right?
What year was this?
This was oh man, this had to be. It was 2008 it was 2008 or 9 because
he's
it was right around
a former wide receiver. I just saw a former NFL
exactly
wide receiver.
So he goes. So I remember, and then it started blowing up, right? And he was my general manager at the bar at the time. So it was like, I've seen him sit here and hustle, and he was also working at this one bar. And I'll tell you about it later. But he was working at this one bar. He's been working it for years, and then I'm watching Good Morning America. And I'm sitting there watching it, and they're on there like, "Okay, oh my God, Old Spice guy Isaiah." They're like, "Okay, so you were an NFL player, and then you got into acting. Tell us, how do you just go from NFL to acting?" I was like, "Well, you probably want to put in all the spaces of working crappy bar jobs in between." But they just framed it on Good Morning America that this guy was a football player, and then he got acting. So they framed it to us just like, you can just come here and it'll turn around. And I've seen a lot of lost souls.
Well, yeah, I think a lot about like Kato Kalin, right? The dude, like the OJ pool boy. Like that's like the typical acting things. Like you're crashing with somebody. You're like trying to make it. You're working this job. You're working that job. You have to have a flexible job. Well, nowadays it's a lot of self taste. Like
Yeah.
Nowadays
there's a lot more self taste.
My audio. Yeah. Nowadays it's a bunch of self taste, but like you hear you have a lot of I'm hearing my own audio. Sorry, but like you
get that playback.
Did I don't know. Anyway,
I'm not getting it. It's clean here.
Okay, it's clean here now. All right. So nowadays you have a lot of self-taste. But back then, like you have to have very flexible jobs because it's like, okay, like I need to be able to like at a moment's notice say I'm going somewhere else.
Yep, exactly. And or be like, hey, I got to take this audition right now. Like I can't come in today because I got this audition just for an audition. That's not even a full job at that point. So there, you said earlier, to play football, you have to have a little screw loose. I think to be an actor, you do too. Because there's times where you will sacrifice literally what I explained of going to work where money's coming in to go, take a shot at something that maybe could change your life. Maybe you get it and it still doesn't change your life, but it's that passion,
I always joke that like if in LA, like you're gonna see somebody on somebody who dates gonna be on a billboard. Like in 3 months, like, you'll like there'll be somebody who owes you money, and like 3 years later, you see them on a billboard. But the opposite happens too, where someone goes from a billboard to like,
But even when you see that person on the billboard, they probably got about 6 months to a year before the ad's gone, but as they're still fighting to try to get another ad, so that when that ad's gone, they'll still be able to, so even that billboard isn't that one time is enough, right? It's the only job where you have to keep proving that you're good at the job you just finished doing.
Yeah, it is very, very. I think people don't realize how you have to show up every day.
Yeah, and be on. You can't be off that day.
Yeah. So when did you move to LA?
I moved to LA 2004. So I got when I was done with school, I left and moved back home 2004 March. And that summer, I was gonna, I wanted to save about $2,200, and what I thought was like worth it. Imagine this back in 2004. So, thank you, Democrats and taxes. Anyway, so I go. I that summer, one of the guys I went to college with, he moved out here and wrote this short film called The Fourth. And so he hit me up, email, and was like, "Hey, are you Siaka? You played football. I went to Iowa with you. Like, I'd love for you to come out and shoot this thing." And I shot something with him. The first
Oh,
thing.
right, because he knew you from school, like
yeah,
your theater, yeah.
Yeah, he's theater, and like I did a small thing in one of his first films there in college, and so he flew me out. We shot this film. It was like us. It was him and his brother and a bunch of their friends, me, and coming in, and we just kind of did this thing together. We put all this stuff together, crazy hours, like a lot of it on our own budget. And afterwards, it was amazing. And just like I told you about why I fell in love with it, it was watching all the different parts work to put together even like 15 minutes of this awesome thing.
Man,
like it took me to
takes a village.
Space.
It takes a village. That's one thing. Like working on Blackish, I was like, oh wow, like there's crafty, the people who who serve the food.
Yes.
Care, makeup, costumes, design, set deck, people whose job it is just to decorate the set, to make it look like this person's bedroom looks like a real person's bedroom. Teachers who teach the little kids, the kids who are child actors. So yeah, it's a whole economy. It's an
ecosystem. It was beautiful. So then I flew back, and I was talking to a guy who was like, I met him at 7 when I Big Brother Big Sister program. So he's been like my big brother since I was 7. And we were talking, and he was like, I was like, yeah, it's amazing. And like, this is how much I need. And I'm getting ready. Like, I'm working at Bally's as a personal trainer, getting myself there. And he was like, 2,200. That's it. I was like, yeah. He goes, I'll give you that. I was like, uh-oh. So I went from preparing to leave like beginning of the following year or something like that to, I think I came back in August, and then I was like, I was going to leave in October. So I was taking the month of September, got in my car, drove out here.
How many years in between college and moving to LA?
Oh, it was like, it wasn't even a year.
Oh, wow. So that was quick.
Yeah.
Okay. So you get out there, like, what are your first sort of, most people have their like survival job, right? Like they're LA. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was very, blessed, although blessed and cursed to just kind of get right into it. But like, did you have like a survival job moment before you started?
Oh, yeah.
You started booking commercials and, booking.
No. I didn't really start booking real work till about probably 3 or 4 years in. Any type of, I say real work that gives you money. That could be $200 or it could be SAG scale, anything in between. And I moved out here.
The audience what SAG scale is, just in case.
So SAG scale, because it's a union, there is just a base level that as an actor, or there's certain like levels. If you're a co-star, guest star, or you're a series regular, there's different tiers that you're on. And if you're a guest star, that's the tier you're on. That's the minimum they can offer you. And so most of the time when you're not in a union, they can do anything from deferred, because you need video so you can show that you're actually good at what you do, or they pay you a minimum like $250 or something like that. So to have the SAG scale is good to see that in there. And for me, it was my first job was a catering gig at the Design House. Do you remember the Design House by chance?
That might have been before my time.
It's on the hill on top of like Coldwater Canyon, Laurel Canyon. So it was on top of the mountain. Keyshawn Johnson used to own it, and what he did, he got it so that he had each room designed by like big names. So like Gucci had a room, Tommy Hilfiger had a room. So it was the Design House, and they throw events there. And the first event I went to was like this Save the Ocean, Save the Whales thing. And it was like every star that I've ever even like thought about seeing was there. It was like John Stamos with Alicia Keys. And there was what's her name? Nicole Kidman's walking in. And there's all these different stars. And I'm just like, and mind you, I've been in LA now for a month and a half. And I'm just like, whoa, this is what it is. And no, but it was catering that just kind of kept me going.
Was that pre-selfies? Because like I know, like when I first moved to LA, I had a friend who just kind of knew everybody, and so I started being around. I mean, aside from working, obviously I was working with Anthony and Tracy and Lawrence Fishburne, and all these people. But you get used to that because you're on set every day.
Yeah.
But, like when I would go out to these Hollywood things, and I'm seeing like my favorite artists, and 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 that was during the Snapchat era, so I was definitely like, I was the guy who would. I had to obviously stop, but I was the guy who would be like, whatever.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
No, it wasn't
the catering. Like,
No, it wasn't like that at all. At the biggest thing, because it was still at a point where like people felt more separate from that level, right? So I was the guy who would just go up and talk to people. Like that was what was different about me. Like I'm like, hey man, what's up? So like that's how I'd end up having conversations with a lot of these celebrities like early on in my time here. But it wasn't like, let me take a picture. I did because my cousin didn't believe at one point I was hanging out at I'll just say one of the stars of Friends. I was at her house for a friend's birthday.
There's only like 3 people it could be, but go. I like that.
Well, no, because I don't want to put one name, and if people are, you know what I mean, I'm like, look, it happens. No, but I went to the house, and he's like, and my buddy's like, no, you're not over there. I was like, yeah, and I turned around, I was like, hey, my cousin doesn't believe it. Can I take a picture of you guys? And she was like, okay, and I just stood there, and it was in my head looking back. I'm like, that's really awkward. But I just sat there. But also,
you weren't in the picture. It was like you weren't in it, so it wasn't like you're asking them for a picture. But okay, so you were able to compose yourself. You weren't like too starstruck. Yeah. You didn't fangirl.
No, I never. No, it's never. To me, it's never starstruck. It's more like I admire their work. So I'm like, man, that's dope. Like, you like meeting someone who was balling, whether it's somebody who balls really great on the blacktop or if it's somebody in the NBA. If that person is just doing it, I want to meet him because there's something special about that. I want to connect, find out, and all that. And that's how I have always approached, in a sense, celebrities. And I'd come up like, yo, big fan, love your work. Like, yo, how do you do this? Because I just want to see how they think, what they do to work through it. So I'm not coming at them like, oh my God, and is it okay if I talk to you? Like, I don't do that. Like, no, you're a person. I'm a person. I'm gonna come talk to you.
So 3 years. So you're doing catering. You're doing what else? Are you like waiting table?
I ended up
things.
Yeah, I got a great waitering job at this place at the time called The Wave in the middle of the Beverly Center. So you got this kid from Chicago just moved out here, and it was a restaurant that was on the first floor of the actual mall itself. You know, you go up 3 floors, and that's the
and by the way, for the people listening, the Beverly Center is like a mall in LA. It's like Beverly Hills. I guess it is in. I don't know if it's technically Beverly Hills. Like
no, it's not, like, but it's right there.
It's like right there. Yeah, Beverly Hills.
So we had. So you imagine the 24-year-old kid is standing is serving there. I think within the first 6 months I was in LA, and you're seeing the most beautiful women going up and down escalators, walking around.
Okay, wait.
You're seeing celebrities going everywhere, and I was just like, I love this place.
Yeah, okay. So I have to interject here because one thing you're saying is very resonating with me because I feel like LA, because there's so many people whose job it is to be good looking, like. It breaks your scale. Like I feel like there's like a level of hotness. Like what I thought was a 10 was actually like an 8. Like not like it's very juvenile to assign like numerical values to people's appearance, obviously, but forgive me. But like it like breaks your scale. You're like, oh, well, I didn't know people as attractive as you existed.
Because everyone's coming here, it messes you up. It breaks your scale in a few different ways, and I think I like you so break because when I would go back home to Chicago and go, everyone's always this big. What's going on? Why does the portions look like you could feed a small village? Like this is stupid, guys. Like moderation.
Sometimes I feel like it's illegal to be fat in LA. Like it was like I'll like land there after I've gone. And I was like everyone loves matcha. Everyone loves their just juicing and hiking, and it's like everyone's just very good looking. But anyway, so you go. It's good to know that it was like that back when I guess like 04 or whenever.
Oh yeah, 2004. Yeah. Oh yeah, it was like that. I remember seeing like, and then it was awesome. I saw Magic Johnson early on, so I was seeing a lot of people just chilling there, walking through the mall, and then I did how to get SAG. I was doing a bunch of student films, this, that, and the other, and to get SAG, I got SAG like 3 years later, and I was so frustrated because I'm like, man, to get there so hard.
You hate unions, but you like this union. I like
that's the only way. I didn't start hating unions. I didn't start hating unions, so I started waking the hell up back in 2016.
So you were liberal. So you were pretty liberal. You were pretty liberal until because I feel like every conservative, especially every black conservative, kind of has like a moment, or even centrist, even like that like pivoted them. That was like it's usually like some sort of. I think for some people it was like Kavanaugh, for example, or it was like it's just different. Like Trump, I think caused a lot of realignment.
That definitely locked it in. The initial realignment, because it was I want to say it was probably in 3 stages. 2008, I made phone calls for Obama. That's how much I was down for the dude. And then he
that
came
was
in office.
Obama's appeal. Like Obama's appeal was that he won Ohio, he won Iowa, he won these states that people are like out of hand for. Like, there has been a realignment, but Obama, like, that's one thing that's so weird about kind of like the whole progressive thing. Because if you go back and look, and like I know a lot of progressives will feel like Obama's like a war criminal or whatever, but like I think every president's a war criminal because like if you by the broadest definition, every president
they are
is.
right.
But like like if you go back, like the way Obama talked about race in America, like he was never like America is bad. He was always like kind of like he was very pro America. He was always like the foundations for ending slavery came in the roots of like the Declaration of Independence and like all men are created equal. Like basically the same, like even though those men owned slaves, the words that they wrote are what set the foundation for those slaves to be free. Like it was never about like damning America and like, and I'm not saying that it's bad or good to rename bases or to rename streets. Like if there's people who have done like truly, truly horrible things, so I think, I mean, it's tough because obviously there's certain people who like even like presidents, own slaves and stuff, but like there might be, there are cases, there's cases for and against a lot of these things, but like he was never like about, like he was always like uplift, like holding himself out as an example of like, this is what America is about. It's about an immigrant. It's about a black man who can win Iowa and who can go to, Ohio and like these red rural areas and like connect with people. Like it was never really about like America's bad and evil,
I think he was more like that as when he was running for office than when he got in, because like when he got in and he had the House and Senate, and his big thing was universal health care back when I believed that. And the first thing he did was sign that executive order about the pay gap, and he started going off on the 70 cents to a dollar, right? And he started pushing that lie. And that was a clear lie. That's been proven over and over.
The gender pay gap, or which gap? Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't know, a lot of executive orders are just prioritizing laws that are already on the books. And so that'd be discrimination laws. Those are already on the books.
Right.
But I'm like,
and like there is
how
like,
come he doesn't?
And before, there is a lot of literature about like the reason, like the causes of any pay gap being, some of it is preference, right? Some of it being like certain people
most of it is preference.
So I don't want to, because I feel like everyone's gonna be like, well, why are you just letting him say that? Like there are a lot of studies, like you can go and read them.
Well, then that's the point though, right? Just like anything else, just like when we talked about Kanye, it's not a matter of going like, that doesn't happen, or it does happen. It does happen, so shut up about anything else. It's like, no, okay, if this thing exists, can we talk about why it exists? So then we can see what we can do. That was the issue. It was this happening, and then you can't talk about that it doesn't exist at all, or that there's reasons behind it, and we watched so many people get crapped on for trying to push back on that,
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, there's certain things that like, it's like you're not really supposed to question. And I'm not saying that's one of them, but there's certain things where like you do like 5 minutes of research. And I think this is what makes people a little bit like, what's the word? Just like alienated from politics or alienated from discussion. Because there's certain things that's like, wait, like there'll be a hysteria about something, and then you'll do like 5 minutes of research. You're like, oh, that's not like the data doesn't support that. That's not really what
Yep.
I remember reading like there was like a thing about like I'm not. This is one of those groups that it's hard to talk about without kind of raising a lot of ire, but like. I remember reading about like there's like a trans murder epidemic, like an epidemic of trans people being murdered. And I was like, oh my goodness, that's horrible. And then like people like there were some articles about it. And it's like, well, like I think it's like 30 per year, and like the homicide like that, like if you like 30 or so per year divided by the number of trans people in America is actually like that's like a lower murder rate than like being
anything
a cis or like a black like a black man, or even like obviously
anything else.
Well, the black male murder rate's obviously by far the highest, but even lots of other groups have but like it's like. To get me to care, but I feel like people feel like the need to like kind of like hype something up as much as possible to get people to care about it. It's like, hey, I'm gonna care about. You don't need to tell me there's an epidemic to get me to care about it. Because I'm gonna care. I care about anyone who's innocent who gets murdered, right? But I think there's this desire to like kind of like it's even like you see with the kids in cages where it's like, oh, like this is this horrible. And like any I spent 28 days in the feds. Like that's bad. But like if you go back and you look at it, it's like, oh well, it's kind of like. It's like when people would post pictures, they would be from 2014, 2015. They'd be like, well, it wasn't bad then, or well, okay, fine, it was bad then, but like it's like I think that like there's
it's horrible now, right?
Yeah. It's so it's like I think that there's certain things where it's like everything basically if everything's a 10 on the scale of badness, and nothing's a 10 on the scale of badness, because like
exactly,
it's outrage inflation, right? It's inflation,
and that right there is exactly where I believe the powers that be want us, because if we're set, it's a divide and conquer, bro. It's the oldest trick in the book. If you look at all the different groups now that have extended out in the alphabet group and all that, it's like you keep fragmenting us. And if we keep fragmenting us, then we're not, as we mentioned earlier, we don't see ourselves as American, because as a gay, black, trans, as of so and so, and it's like,
or even
like,
as human, like not even just as American, like, but even just as human, right? I think that like I remember during the George Floyd stuff, like there was like some opinion piece or something in the New York Times, and someone, it was like a black journalist who's like, every day I live in fear that I'll get murdered by a cop. It's like, dude, like you like living in New York, like it's just very like we don't need to have people be like you can believe that it's tragic what happened to certain people, and not have to be like, oh, like you're far more likely to die like from like
a car crash.
Heart failure. Yeah. I was gonna say car crash, but I was like trying to diversify it a little bit, because that's like the immediate thing that people think of. But yeah, heart failure, a car crash, and like, but that's not to say that like any innocent person who gets killed by police or by anyone that's like a tragedy. But I think that like to kind of put to put it on 10 where it's like every day as a black person I'm in terror, like, and I've had situations with police. Now I'm not I'm not saying that as a person who doesn't who's like, oh, like cops are just like the best people, but I think that like putting like basically making everything a 10, like making everything the worst thing ever. And I think you saw this with under Trump's, like Trump's gonna get indicted today, Trump's gonna go to prison, whatever Trump just did this week is the worst thing that anyone has ever done. It just kind of it creates exhaustion. Like I'm exhausted, like I mean not like exhausted in the sense of like I've done work, but like I don't like I have zero like wake me up when like I just you can't get me to care. You can't get me to care
again.
Anymore.
That's the thing, and that's the thing. This economic issue we're facing now is because they worked so hard to make just the idea of Trump so just turned off that people will be like, you know what, I don't even want to deal with it anymore. That's the issue. Again, I tell you, like who's kept pushing those things. The whole Russia thing has been proven up and down the board was false. Their depositions behind closed doors. Adam Schiff saying, "I have no proof" in their depositions.
Wait.
But they went on TV to say this over and over. Why could they go on TV and say it, and then you go, oh, "I'm done. I don't want to hear it. This guy just must be bad." Why? Because they're saying it over on TV. Like, Well, we work in TV. We see how you do it.
Yeah, but also it's like if every day someone tells you like this thing's gonna happen and it doesn't happen, it's like, okay, like at some point you gotta like kind of lose faith in that. And I think people who have lost faith in journalists, they've lost people have lost faith in politicians, journalists, the media, all that. But anyway, as we wrap this up, although we will do a part 2 at some point.
Because I was gonna break down my 3 points to get me to conservatism.
Yeah, okay, no, give me your 3 points give me your 3 points that got you that like kind of was your awakening.
So after Obama was elected, he had the House and Senate. He talked about universal health care and did nothing about it. And I thought to myself, it was like going into the second year. I go, you know what he's going to do? He's not going to do anything. They're going to lose the House, and then he's going to say as Republicans and why we can't get health care done. And that's exactly what he did. So I was just like, all right, I'm done with politics in general. Then 2013 was my first stint with sobriety, and I just start seeing how the world attacks us individually just to keep us numb. So that was like something's going on. That was just something's going on.
Did you go to like AA or something or was it like, or you just okay?
Yeah, I went into AA and I was doing the program, and then I relapsed, and then I got back in, but I got back in a year and a half later, which was 2016, March 15th, 2016, and life turned around. And so I'm doing my thing. I'm doing my focus. And we take the play with that first teacher that I had back in college when I took that Black Action Theater. He was my director in this play called The Dutchman by Mary Baraka.
Mary Baraka.
Yeah. So we
well-known civil rights activist.
Civil rights, yeah. And yeah, I told you my teacher he's a Black revolutionary all the way, brother. Like he's all in it. And so we took this play down to the National Black Theater Festival in Winston-Salem. And that night, the first night we got there was a Republican debate. And it was like Trump on stage and it was like everyone else. And I'm like, all right, let's see what this guy is going to do. If anything, it's going to be interesting. And he starts talking and he's just like, first of all, he's knocking down their little crappy, like plastic answers to everything. He's bashing Jeb Bush all day. Then he says something that really had me go, okay, this guy's someone I want to see what's going on. He goes, you know what would fix healthcare? If we put it back on the open market and we don't have borders that won't allow me in California to buy a cheaper healthcare from Wyoming. You put it on the free market, and that's how you break it. And every conservative was just quiet. And I'm like, because you guys are working together with the other side to try to trap us into one type of a system.
Go ahead.
And then he said, and then he asked, they were like, how can we, this guy, he donated to Hillary Clinton. He goes, look, I donated to politicians. That's how you get things done. He goes, how many people here have I not donated to? And then everyone, or have I donated to? Everyone raised their hand except for Rand Paul. And I was like, yeah, this guy, just because he ain't them. He's not them. He's not either side. I'm going to ride with this guy right now because we need just a real shakeup. And that's how I saw it.
Well, he was also a comedian. I feel like Trump's humor was like Trump's humor, and I think people are like, "Oh, he's not funny." Like you could say he's the worst person in the world, but he like has good comedic timing. But
yes, he does.
So
those are my 3 points that turned me.
And then when did you become like public about it? Because I feel like coming out as a conservative in Hollywood is like you're signing your death warrant.
The BLM riots.
By the way, I'm not conservative. I'm just gonna I'm not conservative.
He's not, guys. He's not playing it just so you don't try to get at him. He's serious. Yeah, we talked to him before.
I talk to people from all across. I want to bring you all a ride cross.
That's what makes it beautiful, though, man. Yeah. And thank you for that. We need more of this. For me, the question was like,
liberal either, though.
Well, for me, no, he's definitely not that. For me, it was, again, that summer of love they talked about, and all those BLM riots in Chicago specifically really was like, I'm done. My mom lived in the South Side, and right around the corner from the building she lived, a 6-month-old shot while in her stroller. This is when it was just like a shooting range out in Chicago, and no one's talking about it, all while saying Black Lives Matter. All while crying about George Floyd. There's fathers being shot in the back of the head walking down the street 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that gets me about, like, people who say BLM, but then will say defund the police. It's like, what do you think the crime? Like I've lived in bad neighborhoods. I've been around shootings and violence. I've been shot. Like,
you've been shot.
Like if you get rid of them, it's not gonna get better. You know what I mean? The people who are gonna step up to fill that vacuum. The people who are going to die are not going to look like the white dudes, like the white Bernie bros who are talking about defunding the police. It's going to look like, not the Black lives that people claim to care about. And like, you can say what you want about cops, like how good they are if they solve things, but like absent them, there would be more. There's there would just be more. I'm sorry, I don't think like community patrol is going to like stop. Like, they're real people.
Let's see how that works out.
They're real like people who are just really like, I've been around street dudes, and like there's some people who are just like really in the streets, and like that's what they do. But anyway, so when did you get kind of public about it? Yeah.
So that was going down. I was just, and then seeing many in my industry and the industry publicly supporting like funds to bail these criminals and these dangerous individuals out of jail after burning down communities that where a lot of poor Black people live. I was like, I'm done. I was done with the industry. I was like, I'm no more SAG dues. You're not getting any more money from me. And then I went to the first Beverly Hills rally, and it was maybe 60 or 70 people. And this woman standing there at the park, these 2 women, one of them's from Iran. And I was like, I was like, hey, let me get my phone and find out, like, start interviewing them. So I go to the lady. I'm like, why are you here? And she's like, I'm from Iran, and I'm here because I see communism coming, and I'm not going to let it happen on my watch. I'm like, all right, great. Then I go to this other lady, white lady, blonde hair, blue eyes, Jewish lady, has a ring the size that could probably feed like my community, right? Like she's well off, and she's like, open the schools. That was her sign. I go, hey, the sign says open the schools. Why? What's going on? Why do you want it? She goes, it's not for me because I have enough money to give my kids tutors. It's really for those poor Black and brown people they say they care about that need this education and need a place to go. And it's her realer. And she starts crying as she's saying this. And I'm just standing there.
You have this footage, right?
Well, it was it's on my old phone. The FBI took. So
they took your phone. Okay,
they took my phone. They took my computer. They still have it. I've never been charged or arrested. They just came in with guns drawn and took my stuff, guys.
Like long guns or like handguns?
Yeah, they're all ARs.
Oh my! So I mean, that was been pretty traumatic. Like, did you go to like therapy or anything?
No, I didn't go to therapy. I got God, buddy. I went to church. I went deeper in there. Why? Because my biblical beliefs, I'm seeing the enemy work, and everything. Unfortunately, everything that's being proposed by the corporations and the ones running the show is antithetical to the Bible. And as I've been reading it and seeing it, I'm like, ooh, everything they're pushing is opposite that. So.
Are you going to sue the New York, the LA? Also, first of all, so there was a point. So Mark Ponder was given a 63-month sentence, and he was like the longest. He was a black dude. He was the longest January 6th. But I think another dude got 7 years. I think Guy Wesley,
the Oath Keeper guy just got a bunch of years.
Yeah, how many did he get?
I don't know. I think he got.
Let's see. He got a lot.
He got sedition.
That's insane.
But I mean, that's a different ball. That's a different ball game there.
Well, okay, so the LA Times says that they're like, oh, like you were in. So yeah, the sedition, that's a maximum sentence of 60 years. Wow. Yeah. But the LA Times says you were in the. I mean, I'm not trying to get you caught up, and but obviously, like you've already been, approached. Well, the LA Times says you were in the Capitol. I'm like anyone who was in there, I think got charged. Like for the most part,
not everyone. Not everyone.
Okay, so it's like if you were walking around,
like yeah. Okay. Oh, I didn't go in and walk around at all. I stood at the doorway, and I have footage of all this. And
are you
in my footage.
Are you going to sue?
Oh yeah, we're suing. We're going right now. We're suing the FBI. Right now we're in we're in appeals court up in California, the 9th district court. But it's super liberal. But we'll see what happens. Like this wasn't what happened to me and so many Americans. Everyone should be pissed off because there's a thing in our Constitution called castle doctrine. That's in there saying you in your home, whether you own it, but you rent, you live there, that is your home. No government agency or city agency is allowed. They broke my 1st, 4th, and 14th Amendment. Period. Point blank.
I'm happy you're suing. Because I think regardless of how you feel about left or right, like protest is important. I think
definitely important.
We have to have a part 2 because I have to hop on a call. I will text you.
Yeah, dude, I got a call in a half hour. Yeah.
Yeah, but I want to talk to you more about the actual day itself and like what that was like. And also just like I know that like you basically got like your agent dropped you, your manager dropped, like once all that stuff came public. Because I don't know if you were out before that, but I know once that stuff became public, you were dropped by everything. Like
it was fantastic.
And so yeah, I know that's right. So I want to talk about that too. But yeah, I'll let you go. But yeah, we're gonna pick this back up.
My man, thank you for having me on, brother.
Oh wait, tell people where they can find you.
Oh yes, so you can find me on Instagram. You have to spell it out because I'm super shadow banned, but it's Siaka _Massaquoi. You got to spell it out. Go all the way to the O and I.
Elon has to buy it. Elon has to buy
and that's what I was gonna say. You go to Twitter, and since it's new for me because I wasn't on it because I did start a Twitter because of Elon. Now I'm like, yo. If they can show that you get engagement, everyone's going over there. You can find me at _Siaka Massaquoi. I'm also on Truth Social at _ or at Siaka Massaquoi and at Facebook at Siaka Massaquoi as well. So check me out there. Yeah, we got some comedy stuff. We do funny stuff. And I'm always down for a good conversation like this. I don't mess around with trolls because it's ridiculous. But hey, if anyone wants to ask questions, reach out. We can have a good conversation.
Awesome. Well, it's good to have you. We're gonna do a part 2. I do want to get to the aftermath. Like we got up to January 6th, but the aftermath, like getting
we'll do it.
Paper. So yeah, but it's good to get to talk to you and have a good day. Also, you're on the Californians moved to Texas. The
Babylon B
smash hit series. Ted Cruz was in there. However you feel about Ted Cruz, he
was funny.
He did act. I saw him speak once. He was pretty funny. But anyway, it was great speaking with you. Have a good rest of your day. All right, later. Okay, that was Siaka Massaquoi. And, I try to fact check things live when I'm talking to somebody. I'm not really opinion checking things. Like if you think that January 6th was the worst thing that's ever happened, since 9/11, or if you think it was, the most peaceful thing ever, I'm not here to convince you one or the other. But anyway, that was Siaka Massaquoi. Make sure you like, subscribe, rate, review all the engagement verbs. You can follow me at DSONOIKI pretty much everywhere. And catch you next week.
Tell you what, this camera though from your stream, this stream is better. I use Restream and it's like, oof.